and understand a little better. In order to dig in, I think it's important to kind of see where they came from. So two places to look. One is the K-12 CS framework. So this is essentially a framework giving you background on everything that is included in computer science, both the practices, meaning the things that students would do, the big concepts that underlie all computer science work, as well as what students should be able to do by grade band. So this already existed, and based on that, the CSTA, the Computer Science Teachers Association, created a set of standards that many people in the computer science world have kind of been using or adopting on their own. And you can kind of go through that link and see all of them here. But the Illinois standards were basically based on these two documents. And if you want to check the chat, Jesse is responding to some of those outstanding questions that were on a slide a few slides back, and she's got some great information for you there. So jumping back into what I was saying, the Illinois standards are very closely mirroring the CSTA standards with just a few deviations. Illinois did add 2 practices and did add 1 concept to what's in CSTA, but other than that, they're very closely aligned. So I think Jesse shared earlier this document, which is the CS standards, which has everything that the state is asking. Something that I put together that was based on a document that CSTA had out was an integrated view that just takes all of those standards and drops them into kind of this matrix here, so you can see them all on one page. So if you're someone who has to plan for multiple grade levels, maybe you're a tech coach, or maybe you're a curriculum director and you're needing to plan and see these for all grade levels, this is a document that might help you out. I'm going to drop a link to it in the chat for you. And that'll just show you everything about the standards by category on the left, all of the grade bands on the right, and then all of those standards from the state's document in this one matrix. So you're welcome to use that and make a copy, modify it if you need to. And then the second 2 tabs at the bottom this has everything, all grade levels, but the second 2 tabs at the bottom have just K through 8 and then 9 through 12 if that's easier. And also I should mention, sorry, going back to that, there is a link at the top here that'll take you to a Google Docs version. So if you wanted to click that, if you like Google Docs better, sometimes it's a little easier to work in than Sheets for some folks, feel free to use that link as well. All right, so there's 2 components of the CS standards to know about. One is the 9 practices. So just going from this K-12 CS site where these practices originally came from, there's 7 practices that basically outline what are important concepts in computer science, okay? The state of Illinois added 2 more. So let's break those down. These that are circled in red, the CSK-12 organization calls these the heart of computer science. So this is computational thinking, okay? These that are outlined in blue, number 1, 2, and 7, are kind of general complementary, as they would say, complementary concepts. They really are connected to those 4 C's, right? Collaborating, communicating, creativity, critical thinking. These last 2 were added by the state of Illinois, and they're really about technology and society, and then students' self-reflection and awareness about their computer science understandings. So those are, if you're looking for the why behind the standards, this is a good place to go, and digging into them deeper on the K-12 CS site will get you into the why. So if you're kind of new to the idea of teaching computer science, really digging into those helps give you that background. But if you're focused on the instruction side, the concepts are what you're looking for. So what you see broken down, let me find it, in the computer science standards, okay, when we talk about the standards, we're generally talking about these concepts and what CSTA calls concepts on the left in the first column, and then sub-concepts, okay? So this is an overview of what those concepts are. And so let's go through them. The first 5 were taken basically from what CSTA produced, and then the state of Illinois added this 6th one, emerging and future technologies. So I'll break those down a little bit. And so here's the sub-concepts that fit underneath each one of those, or subtopics that fit under each one of those. I won't read them to you, but one thing to note is that emerging and future technology doesn't have any subtopics. The rest of them do. And algorithms and programming, coding is not a subtopic. I just put that there to indicate that This entire concept is probably the biggest one in the standards, and that's usually the one people think of first, right? First thing they think of when they think of CS is coding, and this is actually where all those coding topics live. So if you think about that, that's just one out of the 6 areas. So if you're teaching computer science to the CS standards, coding again is part of it, but it's not everything. Here I wrote out for you just a quick, and this is just a one pager you can use to kind of translate them almost into layman's terms. What do each one of these topics really cover? And rather than show this slide, I'm going to break each one of them down one at a time. So the computing systems topic really is about understanding how computers work and learn and to use them effectively. There's a decent amount of overlap here with the computer literacy guidelines that were just released. And so this is an area where, again, you might find yourself double dipping. So instead of looking at it as, wow, I've got these 2 whole new sets of standards I got to create an entire curriculum for, a lot of this is going to be embedded into what you're already doing with students. I would recommend formally integrating this into existing projects and curriculum, and maybe giving students some tech training at the beginning of the year. They get their new devices, they get their Google accounts, you give them a little training. Typically schools are doing this. And all I'm saying is make this a little more formal. Now you've got a checklist of things from the standards, both computer science and computer literacy, that you know every kid needs to get. You don't have to make that up off the top of your head or take a guess. Just integrate that into what you're doing, and you'll be good to go. So as an example of that, just kind of looking at the CS standards for computer systems. So like K through 2, select and operate appropriate software to perform a variety of tasks. So if your students are picking up iPads in 1st and 2nd grade and they're using a variety of different apps, and you're instructing them on, choosing an app that does the thing they want to do, you're really addressing that standard. Let's skip down to troubleshooting 3 through 5. Determine potential solutions to solve simple hardware and software problems using common troubleshooting strategies. That sounds a lot more complicated maybe than it is. If your students run into issues with the iPad, do they know what to do to troubleshoot it? Do they know what to do when it freezes up, or when an app isn't acting right, or they can't get onto the internet? Do they know how to fix problems with the app, or do they know how to charge it? Do they know how to go through a set of steps to fix an issue? That's really what you're looking for. And a lot of times these are things that you're just teaching them as they're using the device. All right, the second topic is networks and the internet. This one, if I were to sum it up, I would say this is understanding how the internet works and how to keep yourself and your systems safe online. I'd say at the K through 2 level, you could integrate, again, a lot of this into what teachers are already doing with the device. If we could take a look at what's there at K through 2, explaining what passwords are and why we use them, and so on. I think if you're teaching students not to share their password with others and why they're important, you're in a good place. I think as you start to go through these standards a little into the higher grades, that's where you start saying, now it's time for us to maybe teach some actual mini lessons about these topics, or maybe this is something that a special area class, a media class, or a computer class that they go to might start to address these as they get beyond 3rd grade. All right, data analysis is the third topic. And if I were to sum this one up, it would be managing data by collecting, storing, and displaying it visually, using tools to analyze and draw inferences. My math and science teachers, this is your time to shine. This is something that a lot of these standards can be formally integrated into the curriculum that teachers are already doing. Again, if you're someone who supports teachers, this is an opportunity to show them how they can address both math standards or science standards at the same time as they're addressing these computer science standards, by having students use technology to do some of those things that they're already doing. So representing data using multiple encoding schemes. Here's another one, organize and present collected data visually and highlight relationships to support a claim. We've even got some ELA in there, right? Supporting a claim. So there's plenty of opportunities to integrate those naturally into the curriculum. All right, here's the big one, algorithms and programming, coding, right? I like to call this think like a computer so you can train it to do great things, all right? There's so many options, and I'll get into this more in the aligning resources section, but there are plenty of opportunities for K through 2 and any grade level to do no device lessons, meaning computational thinking or coding that doesn't require you to be on a device or using a screen or doing any actual coding or block coding. And I'll share with you some resources on that a little later. But this is your coding portion, and this one may be a little harder to integrate without doing a coding lesson, but I think you'll find that it's a whole lot of fun, and you can get teachers on board with this. All right, here are the ones where we intersect a little bit with society. So the impacts of computing. I call this where technology meets society. It involves privacy, ethics, and equity. And I think there's a lot of opportunity for integration. Again, K through 2 and 3 through 5, you can integrate these right into your existing lessons. Taking a quick peek at some of these in the purple section here, compare how people live and work before and after the implementation or adoption of new computing technology. I mean, there's constantly new things coming out, and there are articles and podcasts and videos that you can watch about new technologies. And, as a teacher who's, probably lived through quite a bit of change, you can share with students your experience on how technology has changed the way we live and work, and students can definitely research that. Um, Seek diverse perspectives for the purpose of improving computational artifacts. So kind of integrating the idea of diversity and culture in computational thinking. So really good stuff here, and opportunities, I think, to really integrate with social studies, science, and ELA. So connect with your curriculum people, connect with your social studies, science, and ELA people who know their topics well. And I think you'll find that many of these standards can fit nicely into a project that they're doing where they can integrate some technology. All right, finally, this is the one that Illinois added, and it's about emerging and future technologies. And to me, this can be summarized by what's new in tech, what's coming next, and what will it all mean. This is an opportunity area. I think this is a set of standards that can be integrated well, again, into areas like science, social studies, and ELA. I'm going to share in the aligning resources section some examples of places to find lessons related to this. But if you take a look, and an interesting thing with these 5 standards is they are the same 5 things that are happening in every grade band from kindergarten all the way till they graduate high school. So essentially, the same concepts are being explored. It's going to be up to teachers to kind of figure out how to do these in an age appropriate way. And you may not get to all of them in every grade level, and that's okay. But I think it's very possible to get students thinking about all of these. I really love this last one, create new or original work by applying emerging technologies. So anytime you're having students use tech to create something new, you are addressing that standard. All right, so that was a quick dive into the standards to give you a big picture concept of what's involved in them. And hopefully you can use both the state's document as well as this integrated view to get more familiar with them if you're involved in planning for these standards. So let's talk about resources that you can use to address them. The first thing that comes to mind, I think, for a lot of people is, where is this going to fit in? We already have these standards that we have to meet, and these other standards, and high schools now have media literacy coming, and we have computer literacy, computer science. Where do I fit it in? There's 3 real schools of thought of how you can do that I can think of. One is through a dedicated course. So high school, obviously this applies to you. Middle school, you might look at a special area class, and even elementary school, you might have a special that students go to that where computer science concepts can fit in, maybe a technology class, maybe something that a media literacy teacher is teaching, or something during library time, maybe during a STEM class. So somewhere where you can teach a few lessons at least solely dedicated to CS instruction. I think you can also look at targeted units and targeted lessons that are CS related, or projects that are CS related but are taught in existing classes. So I mentioned some places where you might be able to integrate with computer science with social studies or ELA or math, and some lessons that you work with a team. If you have a coach, awesome. If you have a curriculum person, awesome, that can help you develop some projects that will fit into your course, then that would be great. And then finally, integrating directly into content. And I'll share a couple examples of how this can happen, of redesigning lessons you're already doing to just incorporate some CS standards.